Hi everyone, and welcome back to the first pre-match show ahead of the 2021-22 season. It's our pre-match show this season in association with Sportsbroker, and we're delighted for the first episode to have some really top-end guests to start us off with the season. You'll recognise, of course, Ollie Turton, one of Town's new recruits from the summer, is joining us today. We've also got Stephen Chicken of the Huddersfield Examiner and Stuart Rayner of the Yorkshire Post. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us to preview the Sunday game at Sheffield Wednesday. Ollie, I'm going to come to you first as the debutant on the pre-match show. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy pre-season schedule to join us today. Obvious first question, but I'm sure one that all Town fans watching are keen to find out. How have you found life at Huddersfield Town so far? Pre-season, not a favourite time for any footballer, but how's it been?
Yeah, like you say, every pre-season's really hard, and it's the same again at Huddersfield. But obviously joining a new club, I've really enjoyed it. Obviously you're always apprehensive when you are joining a new team, meeting new people, but I've found it quite easy. I think it helps, like all the lads that I play with. They're all brilliant. They've all been brilliant to me. All been so welcoming. So no, I've really enjoyed it.
We talked to you when you first joined, Ollie, and we talked about what Lee Bromby, the head of football, what Carlos Corberán had said to you. I'm sure you had your own expectations coming in and what life might be like at Town. Has anything surprised you? Has everything been as expected, or is there any element of life at this club that's been a change for you?
I just say how professional the club is and how professional everyone is. Obviously compared to no offence to Blackpool, but the levels it's risen in terms of how they look after you and do everything they can to make you the best player possible. That's been the biggest eye opener for me. And it's obviously if it's something that's going to make me a best player, I'm going to definitely embrace it. So it's to come into this environment where people want you to make you the best you can be. It's been brilliant.
Well, that's good to hear. And Stephen, it's interesting, I think, straight away to hear Ollie talk about the characters in the dressing room and how easy it's been to settle in because of the type of people we have. I know you've written plenty of pieces reviewing last season, looking ahead to this season, and one of the big kind of takeaways from that was characters and the importance to have the right people in the changing room as well as the ability of footballers. So to hear that from Ollie firsthand is quite encouraging as we're on the eve of the season.
Yeah, I think clubs more and more are sort of aware of having the right mix of characters and personalities in the dressing rooms, because it's like any business, really. You want to have people that are driving the standards and that are trying to sort of raise the standards, and that you can count on to sort of have a minimum level of professionalism. And I think any pro athlete, that extends to what you're doing off the pitch, not just on the training ground, but what you're doing at home, how you approach your diet, how you approach sort of any physical work you have to do on your own away from the training ground, all of these kinds of things. And obviously we know that we've spoken sort of a lot last season about how Carlos is very big into his videos. There's a lot of video sessions during the season. I don't know if it's the same in pre-season, where maybe there's a bit more fitness work involved on the pitch, but you need to make sure that you have people that are willing to and able to take that information in and aren't just going to sort of sit there glazing over, staring at the screen and not taking it in. So it is important, and it can translate on the pitch as well. You need leaders. I think that there were times maybe in sort of the bad seasons, the relegation campaign, where there was a little bit of that lack of leadership. But when you speak to people at the club now, they all will tell you the same as Ollie's just said, that the mix seems to be right now.
Ollie, how do you reflect upon that? It's easy. Me and Steve cover Huddersfield Town in different guises. That's our jobs. So to hear an outside perspective from this, and I'll come to Stuart for this in a second as well, but certainly in my 15 years, I think the analysis has certainly taken a step forward under Carlos. I also think the nutrition has as well. I'd be interested to hear how some of the things we do perhaps compare to your previous clubs, Crewe and Blackpool. Just starting on nutrition, for example, as well. I mean, we put a real emphasis on that. Is that fair to say? Is it different here? Is an emphasis on that here?
Yeah, definitely. I've never thought about. I've always thought I've had a quite a good diet. I've not been stupid with it, but I've come to Huddersfield now, and it's made me really think about what I do put into my body in terms of food, and from having what you have for your breakfast, for your lunch, for pre-match, whatever, after the games. So, God, my usual Saturday night after a game would be a takeaway. Yeah. But now the nutritionist Nessan, he's really put it on me to think about what I am putting into my body, especially the amount of games that are in a season. So if you're going from Saturday to Tuesday games, how important that meal is. So that has been a massive emphasis on making you a better athlete. It's so important for players to be able to look after themselves off the pitch. And I mean, like I say, because it's there in front of me, the help's there. You embrace it. So yeah, no, I feel like even now, I know I've only been here a few weeks, but I've really took it under my wing, and I do feel better already for it as well.
That's interesting to hear. Stuart, we'll come to you. Thank you for joining us again. Talked about characters there, and I think from a Yorkshire Post perspective, we've done you a few favours over this summer, because a few of the players that we brought in have played for other Yorkshire clubs in the past. And I was going to come on to likes of Matty Pearson, who obviously has been at Halifax Town, been at Barnsley before as well. I think when I think of good characters, my first impression of Matty is certainly that. He's a player that you guys will know well from covering other clubs in the past. What's your dealings with people like Matty being? There's others as well, of course, Danny Ward previously, who's come in from that kind of background. But I think when Matty came, I spoke to your colleague Leon Wobshall, and he was glowing in his praise about him as a leader as well, like Stephen said. What did you think when he arrived at Huddersfield Town?
Well, I think there seems to be a real emphasis at Town, and a real good one, to bring in characters that people like Lee Bromby know and that have a real connection to preferably Huddersfield, but certainly Yorkshire, if not. You know, when you look at people like Danny Ward coming back, like Jordan Rhodes, like Dwayne Holmes, you know, people who have a real feeling for the football club, and that obviously gives you that extra edge. You don't only want that. You know, you still want to bring in talent from outside, like Ollie, who can add something extra. But I think if you've got that sort of core of people who have that loyalty to the region, that desire to do well, I think it can just give you that little bit extra as a football club. And that's always the balance you're striking. You're always trying to bring through young players if you can, but you don't want to do it at the detriment of just being a closed shop, as I say, and not having people out there. So to have people who come in and you're confident already in terms of what you're getting character-wise, I think is a big advantage. And, you know, possibly when you look back at mistakes at the club in the past, possibly there were one or two characters who came in who weren't quite what the club was hoping for. You know, this season, hopefully that won't be the case.
How do you feel about being described as the exotic kind of foreign signing there, Ollie, in the midst of all that? Is that a first?
Lancashire.
Yeah, I've never heard that one before, but now, like you say, you probably know a lot of lads more about the lads like Dwayne and Matty and that, because obviously they played in the league, in the Championship. Where for me, it's my first time in the Championship, so I feel like I've got not a point to prove, but obviously I want to try and show why I'm good enough to be playing at this level. So no, it's obviously it's just motivation for me to go and do well for the club. Like I say, to the Huddersfield Town fans, obviously the club means a lot to them, and obviously I want to try and put show them what I want to do for the club and help them to get where they want to get to.
That's great to hear. We talk about signings who might not be well known to fans, Stephen. Daniel Sinani, obviously the most recent of those that arrived on loan from Norwich City yesterday. Again, I know that yourself and your colleague Dave Hartrick in particular have spoken about you thought that we had that requirement for a creative spark in the central area. Obviously, on paper, Daniel certainly fits that bill. What did you think when you saw him arrive at Huddersfield Town yesterday?
Yeah, I think it's. I think he's an interesting signing. I think he's maybe not what people might have expected. He's very versatile. We know that he can play across. When you look on Transfermarkt at least, or on Y-Scout, it looks as though he's mostly sort of played in those three positions across the 4-2-3-1. And I think that we know that Carlos likes flexibility in his players. You obviously needed that creative spark in the middle, and if that's where he's going to play as that sort of 8-10 role, then he will hopefully be able to offer sort of that link up between the midfield and the attack, which is something that maybe was a little bit lacking last year. But as I say, sort of Carlos likes players who can play in multiple positions. I think we've seen that. Ollie has played in central midfield before. Josh Ruffles has played sort of up and down the left and has also played central midfield. Levi Colwill has played at left back as well as at centre back. And I think sort of almost every player in the squad now has sort of a second position as well as a first position. And I think having that kind of versatility and flexibility just gives Carlos a lot more options. I think Sinani is obviously going to have something to prove in England. He didn't play a huge amount for Norwich, but his record in Belgium is encouraging, and I know it's obviously a different level altogether. But he was clearly a superstar in Luxembourg, and I think fans will be curious to see what they're getting out of him.
Ollie, I think another thing that fans will be curious to see is the defence this season. There's no bones about it. We had the worst defensive record in the Championship last season. Obviously not something we did once. Just give fans an insight into the defensive work and the type of people we've got across the back line as options now. Fans will know Naby Sarr, they will know Harry Toffolo well, but I'm thinking yourself, Matty Pearson, Levi Colwill. There's a few new faces in that back line this season. What kind of things do you work on defensively in pre-season? How much can you do? Is it about learning in the games? What kind of things have you guys been doing on the training pitch?
Yeah, I think it's changed from what the team was doing last year. I think last year was a lot of man for man. I think this year I think they've changed and wanted to become more solid in terms of marking space rather than just following your man. So yeah, we do a lot of scenario work in terms of high press, low blocks, obviously in the middle third of what the manager wants from us. And like you're saying before, with the flexibility of players playing different positions, I think during the games, I think the manager likes us to be able to know when to maybe change formation to make us more solid, or going from attack to from defense to attack, or just knowing the game and game management, just to be able to God, it's hard to say really. It's it's just we're just trying to be as solid as we can be, being aggressive at the same time.
Sorry to cut you off. In terms of what you just said there about being able to manage the game on the pitch as a set of players, is that something you learned through experience, Ollie, to an extent? I mean, you've obviously played a lot of games in your career to date, and you're not an old player by any stretch, but you've played a lot of games. How important is it to have leaders and people who can read that situation? Obviously, you get instruction from the touchline, but I imagine there are things as players that you have to kind of figure out for yourself almost. Yeah,
definitely. Obviously, experience from playing games has helped me be able to see that kind of stuff. But I think most players now, even lads that have not played that many games, that's why we train the way we train. We have to recognise that ourselves. So the manager's putting that into our heads to be able to know when to go into certain formations or defend a certain way. So by the time obviously we're playing games, we'll know what we want to be doing in them games in terms of defence and attack.
Ollie, can I ask you? Oh, sorry, Stu. Can I just quickly ask you about Levi Colwill, Ollie? Because I know fans who've watched all our pre-season games on YouTube have been quite excited by Levi as a player they won't know well through reputation. He's obviously only 18 years old, but he's certainly shown a lot to Town fans in the pre-season games. How impressed have you been with him for an 18-year-old making his first steps in the Championship?
yeah, like you say, for his age and the way he composes himself on the ball, I feel like he never looks rushed on the ball. He's always looks relaxed. He's always in control of the situation. And like you say, defensively, he's been really solid for us. So no, it'd be really exciting to see how he does when obviously the season kicks off and we're playing game after game. But yeah, like you say, he's been really good for us.
I'm interested in sort of that work on the ball, because I think last year we had a lot of goals were sort of given up, and Carlos talked about it as well, that players were making sort of the wrong positional decisions when playing out from the back and things like that. Is that something that's been sort of drilled into you as well as the work against the ball?
Yeah, like I say, we've done both sides. It's from the defensive stuff and then on the ball stuff, from playing out from the keeper to all the way up to the opponent's half. I think the manager can only put ideas into your head of what he wants to do, but then in the end of the day, it's what you actually do on the pitch, and it's your decision making in the end. So the manager puts the ideas out for us on the training pitch, and we practice that so many times a week. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's this the decision making that we choose on match day. So hopefully, with the amount of practice we have been doing, it's successful during the season.
Excellent. Stuart, I think in terms of season starters, couldn't have been a better draw for you, could it? Sheffield Wednesday, Huddersfield Town for the main sportsman at the Yorkshire Post sounds like an ideal one to me. How much are you looking forward to that game? How much do you think fans should be looking forward to that game?
Well, I think I'm looking forward to it tremendously, but I think fans in particularly will be. You know, after so long, to not having been able to get in to watch a competitive game, I think they could be playing the dog and duck, and fans would be excited about it. So to be playing Sheffield Wednesday is absolutely brilliant. I actually think that the timing of this game might help in a way, in the sense that being the last game before the competitive stuff for both teams, we might actually see stronger teams than we would have done had it been the midweek slot. We might see both managers sort of trying out quite close to their first teams, but I'm just expecting a really passionate and an entertaining game. I think from Huddersfield's perspective, I think to be playing Sheffield Wednesday so early is probably a good thing. They're still sort of finding their feet, putting their squad together. One thing Town have done really well is obviously Ollie and most of his colleagues arrived pretty early, with the exception of Sinani. Business done very early, so they've had a lot of time to learn what Carlos wants in all these situations, and to get to know one another. Sheffield Wednesday are not at that stage yet, as they're adjusting to a new division. So I think it should be a really good game. You know, I think for most of us fans, and I class myself as a fan in that respect, when we've been, you know, a whole couple of weeks without any competitive football, you're just desperate to watch them again, aren't you? And I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah,
it's an interesting. Sorry, Steve, go on.
I just think it's both teams have really got something to prove as well. Like, I think that makes it a bit more of an occasion, and maybe puts a little bit more sauce on the game, as it were. That you know, obviously Town had that poor finish to the season, that poor second half of the season last year, and Wednesday obviously even worse, ended up, you know, going down. And I think that just sort of adds that extra little frisson. It's not just sort of a dead rubber League Cup game, as let's be honest, sometimes they are, which adds a bit of something extra.
Absolutely. Ollie, have you considered, you've obviously had a little taste of playing in front of Huddersfield Town fans at Southport and at Fleetwood previously, but it's a different kettle of fish when it's a competitive game. I know tickets are selling really well for Hillsborough at the weekend. Have you let yourself think about having fans back yet? Because, you know, at Blackpool, tremendous success last year to get promoted, but it did feel different barring the playoff final not to have fans there. You know, it almost not took the shine off it. It's still an incredible achievement, but to be able to celebrate with supporters as things go well is kind of half the point, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I was lucky enough, obviously, to have a couple of a few thousand fans at the playoff games and the the playoff final. So it was nice for the fans to be able to play in front of fans again. Sorry, and like you say, you want to play in front of fans. You want to hear the cheering. So it's especially when you're playing at home, fans make a massive difference to the game. They can drive you forward to do well. So to be able to play a competitive game again in front of fans, it's going to be a brilliant occasion.
And I don't know what Ollie thinks, David, but certainly in the experience of the games I've been at, over the last year with fans in, it makes a difference to the game as well. It makes for that bit more intensity and that bit more tempo to the game than just playing behind closed doors, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes you play behind closed doors when I've played in games when it's the game's been slow. There's no atmosphere. It is hard to play in, to be honest. So when you are playing with fans, obviously it does spur you on. Then like you say, just the game in general, the intensity is just turned up. So yeah, it did make a massive difference.
I think there's it'll be quite nice for you guys as well, won't it, Stuart, Steve, to think that you've been working away. You guys, we've been the lucky ones, I suppose, in this regard, that we've still been able to attend football in our relative roles. But it does give a different feel when you're in the press box as well, doesn't it? And you are catering for that audience. So I suppose in the last 18 months, you probably had to think about things differently in terms of how you give information to fans and how you cover games. It's going to be quite a shock to the system to have people back in the grounds for you guys too, isn't it, at the weekend?
Yeah, you and I were joking at Southport. Like we genuinely kept forgetting that we were surrounded by fans. It's like, oh yeah, do people, have you said that Hef's at the game, for instance? It's like, oh wait, no, everyone knows, they can all see him. It's going to be strange. Weirdly, you do get used to it after a while. Like it does almost just become normal. You stop thinking about it, and I think it's going to be a little bit strange again, coming back to having fans, but strange obviously in a good way this time, rather than in a what's this all about kind of way. Although I am going to miss being able to turn up to the games and not having to worry about traffic or parking. Think about the journalists, please.
And I'm going to miss being able to hear exactly what the managers are shouting at the players some of the time. But I was lucky last season. I did a couple of end of season Premier League games, playoffs, covered some of the games in the European Championships, and it really, even from the stands, it really lifts you. I can imagine what it was like at Wembley for that playoff final. I did a Harrogate game in December when they were in Tier 3, and there were only 800 there, something like that. Even 800 people made such a massive difference. So it'll be fantastic to properly get back to having fans in it. It just makes it better for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's tremendously excited at that prospect. Ollie, before we finish today, I've got to really ask you the important stuff, which I should have done to start the show. I really should. But you've been away with the squad now, obviously. You've been to a couple of away games, been to Norwich and Colchester with the squad last week as well. You had to sing in front of them yet?
Yeah, God, I did it. It was the first day when we went down to Colchester. To be honest, I got it over and done with. Went up first, 8-0 Mountain High I went for. Got it done as quick as possible. Well, it's like you say, it's character building in it. So
that's one word for it. Yeah. Have you missed your calling, Ollie? Have you got a bit, or is football definitely your specialty?
No, I've got no voice at all.
Was anyone any good?
No.
Lewis is all right, isn't he?
Yeah, they kind of get Lewis. Did Lewis sing for you, Ollie? If everyone's coming, they tend to get him up.
I've heard he's really good. I know we didn't manage to. Danny Ward's got on the guitar, so I think he's got a bit of vocals as well. But no, I've heard Lewis has got a good bit of a voice.
We learn new things on this show for the first time. Danny Ward's guitar playing is new for me as well, so that's good. So, look, guys, I don't want to keep any longer than we have to. I just want to say thank you for joining us on the pre-match show in association with Sports Broker. Ollie, thank you so much for your time on a rare day off. Good luck on Sunday as well. We're all rooting for you as we return in front of fans for the first time for the first competitive game. It's been a little while since we've had a cup run at this club, as I'm sure you're aware. So I know everyone's right behind you for Sunday. Good luck.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Just a word to town fans as well, just finally, just a note on streaming. Obviously, streaming has now reverted to the pre-pandemic state. So unfortunately, if you're domestic, you can't watch Sunday's game on iFollow HTFC. Audio passes are available. So if you can't listen to us on Radio Leeds, you're outside the area, then nip onto iFollow and you can buy that audio pass. But thanks so much for your support through the summer, town fans. We've certainly missed you and we can't wait to see you at Hillsborough this weekend. Thanks for joining us.